Ancient alchemists believed the sun was not merely a celestial body but a living furnace, the prima fornax, where base matter was transmuted into gold through divine fire. The Emerald Tablet speaks of the force of all forces ascending from earth to heaven and descending again, mirroring the solar cycle. In Egyptian mythology, Ra sailed his solar bark through the underworld each night, defeating the serpent Apophis to be reborn at dawn. This daily death and resurrection became the alchemical metaphor for calcination, burning away impurity to reveal the philosopher's gold hidden within. European superstition held that staring into the sun at solstice could grant prophetic vision, while Japanese folklore warned that solar eclipses occurred when the celestial fox Inari swallowed the sun, releasing stardust as remnant sparks across the sky. The concept of stardust alchemy posits that all matter originates from stellar nucleosynthesis, a truth modern science confirms but ancient mystics intuited. Paracelsus wrote that the stars within us governed health and temperament, linking cosmic dust to the humors of the body. Hindu texts describe the universe as born from Hiranyagarbha, the golden cosmic egg, whose shell shattered into stardust that became all living things. Similarly, Norse mythology tells of the primordial void Ginnungagap, where sparks from Muspelheim's fires met the ice of Niflheim to create the first matter. Folk superstitions across cultures claim that shooting stars are fragments of divine forges, sparks from Hephaestus's anvil, tears of angels, or souls ascending. To catch stardust on your tongue was said to grant temporary immunity to poison, a belief recorded in medieval grimoires. His wife, her leaves would forever be his sacred symbol, crowning the heads of heroes and poets. Know thyself. Apollo's temple at Delphi bore the famous inscription, Know Thyself, Know Thyself. It was a reminder that under the piercing light of truth, no human can hide their true nature or escape their mortality. The tragedy of Daphne, the origin of the laurel. After defeating the Python, a proud Apollo mocked Eros, Cupid, telling the god of love that bows should be left to true warriors. Insulted, Eros shot Apollo with a golden arrow of insatiable love, and shot a beautiful nymph named Daphne with a leaden arrow of absolute disdain. Apollo pursued Daphne relentlessly, driven by the blinding fever of his love. Exhausted and desperate to escape him, Daphne cried out to her father, a river god, for salvation. Just as Apollo caught up to her, her skin turned to bark, her hair sprouted leaves, and her feet rooted. Know thyself. Apollo's temple at Delphi bore the famous inscription, Know Thyself, Know Thyself. It was a reminder that under the piercing light of truth, no human can hide their true nature or escape their mortality. Core myths of light and truth. Apollo's most famous myths center around establishing order, revealing hidden truths, and the tragic consequences of crossing his brilliant path. The slaying of the Python, the victory of light. Before Apollo's reign, the ancient sanctuary of Delphi was guarded by the Python, a colossal, primordial dragon born from the slime of the earth goddess, Gaia. The creature spread terror and kept the region shrouded in darkness and, just days after his birth, the young Apollo took his silver bow and traveled to Delphi. He hunted the beast to its lair and slew it with a volley of his arrows. By defeating the primeval monster, Apollo brought literal and spiritual light to the sacred site, establishing his famous oracle, the Pythia, which would guide the ancient world with the clear light of prophecy. Sacred animals. The animals tied to Apollo reflect his dual connection to the brilliant sky and the cryptic world of prophecy. The raven and crow. Originally, these birds were said to have shimmering white feathers. They served as Apollo's spies and messengers in the mortal world. According to legend, when a raven brought Apollo the devastating news that his mortal lover, Coronis, had been unfaithful, the god cursed the bird in a fit of grief and rage, scorching its feathers pitch black forever. Swans famously circled the island of Delos at Apollo's birth. They represent grace, light, and the divine harmony of his music. The python/snake. Though he killed the monstrous python of Delphi, the snake remained a symbol of the earth's prophetic powers, tightly linked to his oracle. The wolf, representing his sharper, more dangerous edge as a protector of flocks against predators and a god of sudden destruction. Apollo is one of the most complex deities in the Greek pantheon. While he eventually inherited the solar duties of the titan Helios, Apollo was fundamentally the god of light, which the Greeks viewed not just as physical sunshine, but as truth, reason, prophecy, and healing. He was the ultimate representation of order and clarity breaking through darkness. Primary symbols. Apollo's iconography balances his roles as a peaceful patron of the arts and a fiercely accurate archer. The lyre, a stringed instrument representing his status as the god of music, poetry, and cosmic harmony. He famously received his first lyre from his trickster half-brother, Hermes. The laurel wreath, worn on his head as a symbol of victory, honor, and poetic achievement. This became the ultimate prize at the Pythian Games held in his honor at Delphi.
The silver bow and arrows. While his twin sister Artemis carried a golden bow for hunting, Apollo wielded a silver bow. His arrows represented the sharp rays of the sun, capable of bringing sudden plague or swift, merciful death. He set up his massive subterranean workshops beneath active volcanoes, particularly Mount Etna. The smoke and fire erupting from the earth were seen as physical proof of Hephaestus working his bellows. Assisted by the one-eyed Cyclopes, he used divine fire to forge the absolute masterpieces of the mythic world. Zeus's lightning bolts, Achilles' impenetrable armor, Hermes' winged sandals, Pandora, the very first woman, molded from clay and animated by fire. The dual nature of fire. To the Greeks, fire was a paradox. It was the tool of ultimate destruction, as seen in Phaeton's crash, but it was also the essential catalyst for human progress, intellect, and survival, the gift of Prometheus. Hephaestus and the volcanic forges. While Prometheus gave fire to humans, Hephaestus, Vulcan to the Romans, was the god who mastered its utility. The god of blacksmiths, metalworking, and volcanoes, Hephaestus was cast off Mount Olympus by his mother Hera because he was born lame. Legends of fire, theft, and artifice. While the sun belonged strictly to the heavens, earthly fire belonged to humanity, but only because it was stolen from the gods. Prometheus, the ultimate rebellion. Before humans had fire, they lived in cold, dark caves, utterly at the mercy of wild beasts and the elements. The Titan Prometheus, who had crafted humanity out of clay, pitted them. Zeus had intentionally withheld fire from mortals to keep them weak and subservient. Defying the king of the gods, Prometheus smuggled himself onto Mount Olympus. He lit a torch from the fiery chariot of the sun, or in some versions, from the forge of Hephaestus, and hid a glowing ember inside the hollow stalk of a giant fennel plant. He brought this divine spark down to earth, teaching humans how to cook, forge tools, and build civilizations. Zeus's punishment was legendary. Prometheus was chained to a rock in the Caucasus Mountains, where a giant eagle would tear out his liver every day, only for it to grow back at night to perpetuate the torture. In Greek mythology, the sun and fire aren't just elements. They are dynamic, often volatile cosmic forces tied to creation, rebellion, and ultimate ruin. The ancient Greeks used these myths to explain both the daily rhythms of the cosmos and the dangerous nature of human ambition. Myths of the sun, the fiery chariot. In the earliest Greek traditions, the sun was personified by Helios, a titan who wore a radiant crown of sunbeams. Every morning, he climbed into a golden chariot pulled by 4 fiery, wing-footed horses to pull the sun across the sky from east to west. In later classical mythology, this role was largely absorbed by Apollo, the god of light, music, and prophecy. Myths of the sun, the fiery chariot. In the earliest Greek traditions, the sun was personified by Helios, a titan who wore a radiant crown of sunbeams. Every morning, he climbed into a golden chariot pulled by 4 fiery, wing-footed horses to pull the sun across the sky from east to west. In later classical mythology, this role was largely absorbed by Apollo, the god of light, music, and prophecy. Phaeton asked to drive the sun chariot for a single day. Helios was horrified but bound by his word. He warned his son that the horses were wild, exhaling fire from their nostrils, and that the path across the apex of heaven was so steep it terrified even Zeus. The moment Phaeton took the reins, the horses realized a master's hand was missing. The chariot careened out of control. Too high. It soared too high into the cosmos, freezing the earth and creating the Milky Way as it scorched the stars. Too low. It dipped too close to the earth, boiling the oceans, drying up rivers, turning North Africa into a permanent desert, and scorching the skin of the inhabitants. To save the planet from total incineration, Zeus was forced to strike Phaeton down with a thunderbolt. The boy plunged into the river Eridanus like a shooting star.
A specific toxin found in the venom of the Caribbean blue scorpion is being used to develop targeted treatments for autoimmune disorders like rheumatoid arthritis and multiple sclerosis. It works by blocking specific cellular channels, potassium channels, that trigger overactive T cells, calming down the immune system, so it stops attacking the patient's own body without shutting down their entire immune defense. www.x.com/DW_Polsky/status/2057872861757961723. These compounds are incredibly effective at destroying bacteria, fungi, and even malaria-producing parasites by ripping open the cell walls of the pathogens. Because they attack the physical structure of the bacteria, it is much harder for the germs to mutate and become resistant to them. Powerful new antibiotics. The world is running out of effective antibiotics because bacteria are becoming immune to them. Scorpion venom is a cocktail of complex proteins, and scientists have isolated compounds called antimicrobial peptides, AMPs, from it. When injected into a patient before surgery, the scorpion protein acts like a heat-seeking missile, carrying the glow-in-the-dark tag straight to the cancer. Under near-infrared light, the tumor glows a brilliant green, showing the surgeon exactly where to cut down to the single cell. Scientists discovered that the scorpion's venom contains a specific protein called chlorotoxin. This protein ignores healthy cells entirely, but locks onto cancer cells. Researchers attached a fluorescent molecular tag to this protein, creating a drug nicknamed tumor paint, tazulauristide. Brain tumors are notoriously difficult for surgeons to remove because cancerous cells look almost identical to healthy brain tissue. If a surgeon leaves a few cells behind, the cancer returns. If they cut too deep, it can cause permanent brain damage. Tumor pain, lighting up brain cancer. One of the most revolutionary medical breakthroughs comes from the venom of the death stalker scorpion, Liurus quinclustriatus. It turns out the ancient Egyptians were onto something. Today, scorpions are at the absolute cutting edge of modern medical science. Scientists are using both their venom and the secret behind their eerie glow to save human lives, particularly in the fight against cancer. A true multi-sensory cure. The ritual engaged every sense. The patient heard the vibrating incantation, saw the visual proof of forest conjuring the beast, felt the cool water on the skin, and tasted the magical remedy. It was a complete alignment of mind, body, and myths to fight off death. The Metternich stela was massive, nearly 3 feet tall, and likely stood in a public space, the temple courtyard. Anyone, from a wealthy noble to a poor laborer, could walk into the temple, pour water over a sippus, and access free. Immediate medical magic. The psychological and physiological effect. While it sounds purely mystical, this ritual was incredibly sophisticated for its time and served several practical purposes. Sympathetic magic. By drinking water that had absorbed the image of Horus conquering dangerous beasts, the patient internalized the victory. They were meant to think, just as Horus survived the poison, so will I. The placebo effect in common. A scorpion sting or snake bite induces massive panic, which causes the heart rate to spike, pumping the venom through the bloodstream even faster. The rhythmic deep chanting of the priest combined with the cool water treatment acted as a powerful sedative, lowering the patient's heart rate and slowing the spread of the toxins. A system of public health, consuming the magic. The base of the stela was deliberately carved with a shallow basin, or a system of small reservoirs to catch the water as it cooled at the bottom. Once the water had run its course over the stone, it was collected. The patient would then drink the water, bringing the divine protection directly inside their body to battle the venom on a cellular level. In many cases, some of the charged water is also splashed or rubbed directly onto the physical bite or sting to soothe the burning pain. The Egyptians believed that the water literally absorbed the Heka magical divine energy imbued within the sacred text and images. The physical water became a liquid antidote, highly charged with the protective power of Isis and Horus. The design. Charging the water. The stela is covered from top to bottom in incredibly dense, intricate carvings. It features hundreds of lines of hieroglyphic spells and detailed reliefs of protective deities, most notably Horus the Child, Harpocrates, trampling crocodiles and squeezing scorpions, lions, and serpents in his bare hands. To use the stela for healing, a priest or physician would perform a libation ritual. One, the patient would sit or lie down next to the stone. Two, the priest would chant the mythological incantations carved on the stone, such as the story of Isis and the 7 scorpions. 3, while chanting, the priest poured clean water over the top of the stela, for as the water cascaded down the dark green stone, it physically washed over the hieroglyphic spells and the figures of the gods. The Metternich stela, discovered in Alexandria in 1828 and carved during the reign of Necho to around 360 to 343 BCE, wasn't just a monument to look at. It was a highly functional, interactive piece of medical and magical technology. To the ancient Egyptians, medicine and magic were deeply intertwined. If you were bitten by a horned viper or stung by a bat-tailed scorpion, you didn't just need physical treatment. You needed to combat the spiritual, chaotic force driving the venom through your veins. The Metternich stela belonged to a class of artifacts known as Sippi or Horus stela, and it operated as a literal magical water filter. The legacy of the spell. In ancient Egypt, this mythological story wasn't just entertainment. The exact words Isis used to command the poison of Tefnut, and the others were inscribed onto Sippi's healing talisman. When a real-world Egyptian was stung by a scorpion, a doctor or priest would recite this exact myth over the wound, invoking the names of the 7 scorpions to draw out the venom. Overwhelmed with shame, grief, and immense gratitude, Yuzurt realized she had turned away a goddess. To make amends for her arrogance, she packed up her finest wealth, her gold, jewelry, and fine linen, and brought them to the poor fisher girl's hut, enriching the woman who had shown true hospitality. The compassion of Isis, distraught and weeping, Yuzurt ran into the streets carrying her dying child, crying out to anyone for help, but none of the villagers knew how to cure the terrifying affliction. Hearing the maternal agony of the mother, Isis woke up. Despite the snub, she felt deep pity for the innocent child. She rushed to the mother's side and used her legendary title as the Mistress of Magic. To break a spell or a poison in Egyptian magic, you had to possess complete power over its source. Isis stepped forward and began an incantation, commanding the poison to leave the child's body by calling out the true, secret names of each individual scorpion to strip them of their power. O poison of Tefnut, come out of him and fall upon the ground. Poison of Bephen, advance no further. Poison of Mestet, penetrate no deeper. Poison of Mestitep, arise not. Poison of Edith, Betet, and Matet, flee from his limbs. As she spoke the names, the 7-fold poison dissolved. The child opened his eyes and breathed normally. The mystical fires died down, and the storm ceased. The revenge of the scorpions. While Isis rested safely inside the fisher girl's hut, the 7 scorpions gathered outside, whispering in absolute fury. They felt their mistress had been grievously insulted by the wealthy Yuzurt. To enact divine punishment, the scorpions decided to pool their power. One by one, Bephen, Mestet, Mestitep, Pedit, Betet, and Matet touched their stingers to Tefnut, transferring all of their venom into his tail. This created a single, hyperpotent dose of lethal poison. Tefnut then slithered back to the mansion of Yuzurt. He squeezed through the narrow gap beneath the closed front door, slipped into the nursery, and stung Yuzurt's infant son. The magical venom was so incredibly intense that it not only racked the child's body, but caused a mystical, unnatural fire to break out in the house. while heaven simultaneously sent a sudden, unseasonal rainstorm to batter the roof. The story: the wealthy woman and the fisher girl, exhausted and weary from her long travels under the hot sun. Isis arrived at a village near the edge of the marshes. Disguised as a ragged, elderly beggar woman to conceal her identity, she approached the grand estate of a very wealthy noblewoman named Yusuf, sometimes translated as Glory. When Yusuf opened the door and saw the dusty beggar woman and caught sight of the large, terrifying scorpions looming behind her, she panicked, insulted Isis, and slammed the heavy wooden doors in her face. Undaunted but deeply exhausted, Isis kept walking until she reached a small, muddy hovel belonging to a poor, nameless fisher girl. Despite having almost nothing, the young girl felt deep compassion for the traveler. She warmly welcomed Isis and her strange companions inside, shared what little food she had, and gave them a place to sleep. Before they set out, Isis gave them a strict command: do not look at children, do not call out to the common folk, and do not sting anyone unless they try to harm us. The names and formations of the seven. The scorpions were not just mindless beasts. They were highly organized, intelligent guardians. When Isis traveled, they moved in a strict, tactical formation to ensure no one could surprise her. Tidin, Tetet, and Mekhet. These three walked in front of Isis, acting as scouts to clear the path, navigate the terrain, and ensure no enemies oppose her. Mesket and Mesticat. These two walked on either side, flanking the goddess to shield her from flanking attacks. Kefin and the Fen. These two walked behind her, guarding her rear. Kefin was noted as the leader and the most aggressive of the group. The story of Isis and her seven scorpion guardians is beautifully detailed on the Metternich Stela, an ancient magical limestone tablet dating back to the 4th century BC. It is a tale of hiding and cosmic retribution, and the supreme magic of names when the evil god Set murdered Osiris. He temporarily imprisoned Isis. With the help of those, the wise god of wisdom, Isis managed to escape into the dangerous, watery Nile melting marshes to hide her pregnancy, and eventually give birth to her son, Horus. Knowing the marshes were fraught with dangers, and that Set's spies were everywhere, both gave Isis a personal security detail. 7 divine giant scorpions. In central China's Anhui, a pod of wild finless porpoises, the barometers of the Yangtze River's ecosystem, has been spotted breaking the surface.
Greek mythology. The downfall of Orion. One of the most famous scorpion legends explains the night sky. The giant hunter Orion vowed that he could hunt and kill every beast on Earth. Earth Mother Gaia, or in some versions Artemis, grew furious at his arrogance and sent a giant scorpion, Scorpius, to humble him. The scorpion successfully stung and killed the hunter. To honor the creature's service, it was placed in the stars as a constellation. The gods also placed Orion in the sky, but they set them on opposite sides. To this day, as the constellation Scorpius rises in the east, Orion flees and sets in the west, ensuring the two ancient enemies are never in the night sky at the same time. Scorpions are among the oldest creatures on Earth. Fossil records show they have been around for over 400 million years. Because they thrive in harsh, dark places and carry a potentially lethal weapon on their tails, they have captured the human imagination for millennia. Across different cultures, they rarely represent pure evil. Instead, they are complex symbols of protection, cosmic justice, death, and rebirth. By the time the Black Death physically arrived on ships in 1347, the European population had survived decades of severe malnutrition. Their immune systems were significantly compromised, making a vulnerable population an easy target for a highly lethal disease, a weakened human population. When the Little Ice Age hit Europe in the early 1300s, the weather became intensely cold and wet. Summers were ruined by constant rain, causing widespread crop failures. This triggered the Great Famine of 1315 to 1322, Ebola outbreaks, and modern global warming. Ebola is a virus that naturally lives in wildlife populations, most notably fruit bats, in the dense tropical forests of Central and West Africa. Unlike the Black Death, which was triggered by a cooling planet, Ebola spillovers into humans. The dry to wet weather trigger. Epidemiologists have noticed a recurring pattern. Human Ebola outbreaks frequently occur during sharp transitions between extreme dry seasons and intense rainy seasons. When a region experiences a prolonged, severe drought, forest fruits disappear. Fruit bats, chimpanzees, and gorillas are forced to leave their deep forest habitats and cluster around the remaining localized fruit trees, which are often located near human agricultural areas or villages. This intense concentration of stressed animals increases the virus's spread among wildlife and drastically raises the chances of a human coming into contact with an infected animal, expanding the viral range. Africa is currently warming faster than the global average. Data shows that as winter temperatures rise and seasonal temperature fluctuations flatten out, the ideal ecological habitat for Ebola is physically expanding. Mathematical modeling indicates that regions previously too cool or dry to sustain Ebola reservoirs, including countries like Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Cameroon, are becoming climate hospitable to the virus. Furthermore, as climate change and deforestation push humans deeper into traditional wildlife zones to find arable land, the border between human civilization and viral reservoirs is entirely blurred. The big takeaway: climate change rarely creates a new sickness out of thin air. Instead, it alters the environment via resource scarcity, temperature shifts, or population collapses in a way that forces disease-carrying animals and humans into intimate, dangerous contact. The bust. Suddenly, the climate shifted again, bringing severe droughts and plunging temperatures. The vegetation dried up, causing the rodent populations to completely collapse. The boom. This extra moisture caused an explosion of vegetation in the Eurasian steppes. More food meant a massive population boom for wild rodents, like gerbils and marmots, which naturally carry the plague. The rodent population boom and bust. Modern climatologists studying ancient tree rings have found that the decades leading up to the Black Death, around the 1330s and 1340s, saw sudden, heavy rainfall and warmer springs across Central Asia. The Black Death and the Little Ice Age. In the 1300s, Europe and Asia experienced a sudden, violent shift in climate patterns. The planet transitioned out of a centuries-long warm period and plunged into what scientists call the Little Ice Age. This transition acted as a massive catalyst for the plague bacteria, Yersinia pestis, in two distinct ways. The main difference to keep in mind is that the Black Death was influenced by a period of natural, historical climate volatility, whereas modern Ebola outbreaks are increasingly aggravated by human-driven global warming. Yes, both the Black Death and Ebola outbreaks have fascinating, direct links to climate anomalies, though they happened in completely different ways. Drought and wildfire. Extended dry periods drain the moisture straight out of soil and vegetation. Forests become vast fields of kindling, leading to catastrophic high-intensity fires that replace ancient, complex forest ecosystems with simple brushland. Pest explosions. Cold winters normally serve as a natural check on destructive pests. Without deep winter freezes, pests like the bark beetle survive the winter in massive numbers, decimating millions of acres of forest across North America. Impacts on plants. Plants are the foundation of life on land, and they are highly sensitive to the shifting seasonal boundaries. Disrupted pollination. Just as birds can miss their food window, flowering plants are blooming before their natural pollinators, like bees and butterflies, have emerged for the season. Without pollination, plants cannot reproduce or yield fruit. When ocean temperatures rise even 1 \text, 2 \circ text C above normal, corals experience extreme stress and expel the colorful algae living inside them. This turns the coral stark white, a process called coral bleaching, because coral reefs act as the nurseries for roughly 25% of all marine life. Their collapse threatens entire ocean food chains. Furthermore, the ocean absorbs excess carbon dioxide, making the water more acidic, which dissolves the shells of oysters, clams, and tiny plankton. The oceans are absorbing the brunt of global warming, causing severe marine heat waves. Many animals are migrating toward the north and south poles or climbing higher up mountainsides to find comfortable temperatures. The major danger here is mismatching. Example, a bird species might still migrate north based on day length, which doesn't change, but the insects it feeds its chicks have already hatched 3 weeks early due to an early spring. The birds arrive to find their primary food source completely gone, causing massive die-offs in a new generation. Animals are caught in a fast-moving trap. Evolution takes thousands or millions of years, but climate change is altering habitats in a matter of decades, forcing species to adapt, move, or face extinction. Food and water security. Heavy floods overwhelm sanitation systems, contaminating drinking water with bacteria like E. coli and cholera. In agricultural regions, persistent droughts cause widespread crop failures, directly leading to malnutrition and localized famine. Ground-level ozone. Sunlight and heat-cook pollution from cars and factories, creating smog that severely damages lung tissue. Wildfire smoke. Longer, drier fire seasons fill the air with microscopic particulate matter, PM_2.5. These tiny particles bypass the lungs, enter the bloodstream, and reduce overall lung capacity and lifespan over time. Heat stress and air quality. Extreme heat waves are now the deadliest type of weather event. High temperatures put intense strain on the cardiovascular system, leading to spikes in heart attacks and strokes, especially in older adults. Warmer temperatures actually accelerate the life cycle of the mosquito and cause viruses to replicate faster inside them. Diseases like dengue fever, Zika, West Nile virus, and malaria are climbing to higher altitudes and shifting further north and south into areas whose populations have no built-up immunity. Climate change directly shortens human lifespans and increases sickness through a few major pathways. The spread of infectious diseases. As winters get milder and summers last longer, disease-carrying vectors, like mosquitoes and ticks, are moving into entirely new regions that used to be too cold for them to survive. Climate change isn't just about warmer weather or melting glaciers. It acts as a massive threat multiplier for health, nature, and basic survival. Because everything in nature is interconnected, shifting the global temperature even slightly disrupts the delicate balance holding human health, plant life, and animal ecosystems together. On the ground, their governments are forced to build advanced seawalls, relocate coastal villages to higher ground, and pioneer ways to protect local freshwater tables from saltwater intrusion. How they incorporate it. These nations have shifted their entire governmental focus towards climate adaptation and international law. For instance, Vanuatu successfully led the charge to get the UN and the International Court of Justice to declare that failing to act on climate change is a violation of international law. Small island states, e.g., Vanuatu and Tuvalu. While they don't have the massive industrial footprints of Europe, small island nations are the ones doing the heaviest lifting in global diplomacy. For them, rising sea levels mean their countries could physically disappear. The policy. The government has tied its climate targets directly to public transit and agriculture, restructuring how water is managed in rural areas to handle the changing, more erratic growing seasons. How they incorporate it. Morocco has invested heavily in solar and hydro energy. They built the Noor Ouarzazate Solar Complex, one of the largest concentrated solar power plants in the world, covering thousands of acres of desert. Morocco. Harnessing the desert. Morocco is a prime example of a developing nation using climate incorporation to secure its own economic future, because it sits in a region highly vulnerable to expanding deserts and rising temperatures. Its government treats climate change as a matter of national survival. They utilize an independent climate change committee. This is a group of scientists and economists who legally mandate carbon budgets that the government is forced by law to stick to, regardless of which political party takes power. How they incorporate it. The UK has effectively systematically broken its reliance on coal, which used to power the entire nation. They have implemented a rolling ban on the sale of new petrol and diesel cars, shifting massive government subsidies toward electric vehicle infrastructure and public transport. The United Kingdom, statutory law and aggressive phasing. The UK is notable because it became one of the first major industrial economies to legally bind itself to a net zero emissions target by 2050. They pioneered the concept of energy islands, artificial islands in the North Sea that act as clean energy hubs, collecting and distributing power from hundreds of surrounding wind turbines directly into the continental grid. Denmark relies massively on offshore wind energy. On windy days, their turbines produce more than 100% of the country's electricity needs, allowing them to sell the excess clean energy to neighboring countries. Transformed.
Denmark consistently ranks as the global leader in climate policy. They aren't just acknowledging the change, they are aiming to be entirely free of fossil fuels by 2050. To see what real incorporation looks like, we have to look at the nations consistently leading the Global Climate Change Performance Index, CCPI. These governments aren't treating climate change as a distant hypothetical. They are actively reshaping their infrastructure, laws, and daily economies. The dynamic is shifting. While some major world powers waffle or change directions based on whoever is in office, a vast majority of nations explicitly acknowledge climate change. In fact, more than 140 countries recently voted at the United Nations to support aggressive, legally binding frameworks to protect the planet. It is a massive gap between scientific reality and political action, which is why grassroots monitoring, localized weather networks, and community awareness have become so vital for tracking how our surroundings are actually changing. Furthermore, issuing long-term warnings requires admitting the severity of the crisis, which brings us right back to the political and economic friction. When local and national leaders are hesitant to fund climate adaptation, their public safety systems remain outdated, leaving communities to figure out the shifting seasons on their own. Most government warning systems, like extreme weather alerts, were designed in the 20th century for isolated events, like a single standard thunderstorm or a winter blizzard. They are not built to handle systemic, creeping changes, such as a spring season starting 3 weeks too early, prolonged seasonal shifts, or subtle ecological disruptions. Ocean heat and sea level rise. The oceans absorb about 90% of the extra heat trapped by greenhouse gases. As water warms, it physically expands. Combined with the water from melting glaciers, this has caused global sea levels to rise. About 8 to 10 inches, 20\text, 25\text cm since 1900, with the speed of that rise accelerating sharply in recent years. Ice sheets and glaciers. Data from NASA's GRACE satellites show that the Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets are losing billions of tons of mass every year. Glaciers worldwide are retreating at speeds never seen before in human history. Global temperature rise. Independent tracking by organizations like NASA, NOAA, and the World Meteorological Organization shows that the Earth's average surface temperature has risen by roughly 1.2 carat\circ\text feet. 2.2 carat\circ\text f. Since the late 19th century, the vast majority of that warming has happened in the last few decades. The atmospheric blanket greenhouse gases. We have direct satellite measurements showing that greenhouse gases, mainly carbon dioxide, CO_2, and methane, CH_4, are trapping heat in the atmosphere. Because we burn fossil fuels, atmospheric CO_2 levels are higher now than they have been in at least 2 million years. The scientific proof. In the scientific community, the debate is over. Over 99% of peer-reviewed scientific papers agree that climate change is real and caused by human activity. Scientists have built this mountain of evidence using several physical receipts. The sun as a force of power, a deep dive. Inca Empire, Army of the Sun. The Inca called themselves Children of the Sun in Tipchurin. Their emperor, the Sapa Inca, was considered a living descendant of Inti, the sun god. Their military conquered most of Western South America under this divine mandate. Soldiers believed they carried the sun's will into battle. The Temple of the Sun, Coricancha, in Cusco was lined with gold, literal captured sunlight. Egypt, solar warriors. Pharaohs were embodiments of Ra. The sun-bark boat traveled the underworld each night, battling the chaos serpent Apophis. Egyptian soldiers carried the sun disk into war. Ra's eye, Sekhmet, was a lioness goddess of war and fire, unleashed as divine punishment. Japan, land of the rising sun. Amaterasu, sun goddess, is the ancestral deity of the imperial line. Samurai carried her light, symbolically. The rising sun banner is a military emblem to this day. Aztec, blood for the sun. Huitzilopochtli, the sun/war god, required sacrifice to rise each morning. Warriors who died in battle joined him in the sky. The elite eagle warriors and jaguar warriors fought to feed the sun. Alexander the Great claimed descent from Helios/Amun-Ra after visiting the oracle at Siwa. His army marched under solar imagery. He styled himself as a sun king. Rome, Sol Invictus. The unconquered sun became the official cult of the Roman military under Aurelian, 274 AD. Soldiers worshipped Sol before battle. Constantine later merged this imagery into early Christian symbolism. Sunday, halos, east-facing churches. Fire associations. Zoroastrianism, sacred fire equals Ahura Mazda's presence. Fire temples never let the flame die. Sun and fire are the same divine truth. Prometheus stole fire, sun essence, from the gods for humanity, punished eternally. Agni, Hindu god of fire, messenger between humans and gods. Every sacrifice passes through flame to reach the sun. Beltane/solstice fires. European traditions of lighting hilltop fires to strengthen the sun. Light theories through history. Plato. The sun is the form of the earth. Enlightenment is turning toward the light. Allegory. Theophilus. All reality.
When the desert starts, she wears a queen's gaze, a scorpion crown where danger loves to rest in mazes of shade. Sparks fade, a serpent whispers the wind, warn ancient ways like strings of a guitar, paving the way. Healing in venom, fertility at her chest. Not much else to digest. Guardian of the night, with a stinging truth to rule. Tell me the reason to hate you. I couldn't choose. Cosmic judge in the harbor of the brave, glowing rooms don't wash away in circular ways. Isis beside her, rebirthing the proof that shadow fading into a dawn grave where light is the truth. What do I do? What do I do? I'm ask of you. From tombs to temples and myths intertwined in the silk threads of bedtime. Protector in darkness, a beauty refined. She treads the lines where life meets the divine, like barbed wire twine. Every strike, a blessing redefined. Frozen clock chimes. Frozen clock chimes. Wrapped in wood coffins and shrouds, days pass by with clouds. Justice on the head, a sentinel's quest to wed. Poison for death. You on the blue sea loans, birth and renewal in the desert's wide breath. Smoky treasure chest, blue shot by a wind of the west. Adoration of the best. Under desert stars, she wears a queen's gaze, a scorpion crown where danger loves to rest in mazes of shade. Sparks fade, circuit whispers the wind, worn ancient ways like strings of a guitar, paving the way. Healing in venom, fertility at her chest. Not much else to digest. Guardian of the night, with a stinging truth to rule. Tell me the reason to hate you. I couldn't choose. Cosmic judge in the harbor of the brave, glowing rooms don't wash away in circular ways. Isis beside her, rebirthing the proof that shadow fading into a dawn grave where light is the truth. What do I do? What do I do? I'm asked of you. From tombs to temples and myths intertwined in the silk threads of bedtime. Protector in darkness, a beauty refined. She treads the lines where light meets the divine, like barbed wire twine. In every strike, a blessing redefined. Frozen clock chime. Wrapped in wood coffins and shrouds, days pass by with clouds. Justice on the head, a sentinel's quest to wear. Poison for death. You on the blue sea loans, birth and renewal in the desert's wide breath. Smoky treasure chest, blue shot by a wind of the west. Adoration of the best. She wears a queen's gaze, a scorpion crown where danger loves to rest in mazes of shade. Sparks fade, circuit whispers through wind, worn ancient ways like strings of a guitar paving the ways. Healing in venom, fertility at her chest. Not much else to digest. Guardian of the night, with a stinging truth to rule. Under desert stars, she wears a queen's gaze, a scorpion crown where danger loves to rest in mazes of shade. Sparks fade, circuit whispers through wind, worn ancient ways like strings of a guitar paving the ways. Healing in venom, fertility at her chest. Not much else to digest. Guardian of the night, with the stinging truth to rule. Tell me the reason to hate you, I couldn't choose. Cosmic judge in the harbor of the brave, blowing room stone washed away in circular waves. Isis beside her, rebirthing the proof that shadow fading into a dawn grave where light is the truth. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? A masked view from tombs to temples, her myths intertwine in the silk threads of bedtime. Protector in darkness, a beauty refined. She treads the lines where life meets the divine, like barbed wire twine in every strike of blessing redefined. Frozen clock chimes, wrapped in wood coffins and shrouds. Days pass by with clouds, justice on the head, a sentinel's crystal red, poison for death. You want a Brucey Loomis birth and renewal in the desert's wide breath. A smoky treasure chest, glued shut by a wind of the west. Adoration of the best. Under desert stars, she wears a queen's gaze, a scorpion crown with danger loves to rest in mazes of shade. Sparks fade, circuit whispers the wind, worn ancient ways like the strings of a guitar paving the ways. Healing in venom, fertility at her chest. Not much else to digest. Guardian of the night, with stinging truth of rule. Tell me the reason to hate you, I couldn't choose. Cosmic judge in the harbor of the brave, glowing moon stone washed away in circular waves. Isis beside her, rebirthing the proof that shadow fading into a dawn grave where light is the truth. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? A masked view from tombs to temples and myths intertwined in the silk threads of bedtime. Protector in darkness, a beauty refined. She treads the lines where life meets the divine, like barbed wire twine. Every strike a blessing redefined. Frozen clock chimes, frozen clock chimes, wrapped in wood coffins and shrouds. Days pass by with clouds, justice on the head, a sentinel's crystal wet, poison for death. You want to see Loomis birth and renewal in the desert's wide breath. A smoky treasure chest, glued shut by a wind of the west. Adoration of the best. Under desert stars, she wears a queen's gaze, a scorpion crown with danger loves to rest in mazes of shade. Sparks fade, circuit whispers through wind, worn ancient ways like the strings of a guitar paving the ways. Healing in thunder, fertility at her chest. Not much else to digest. Guardian of the night, with a stinging truth of rule. Tell me the reason to hate you, I couldn't choose. Cosmic judge in the harbor of the brave, broken stone washed away. Circular waves, ice beside her, rebirthing the proof that shadow fading into a dawn grave where light is the truth. Losing call, full circle and peppermint and flame. A sunrise, bicycle wheels through every game. Lightly lit a feather gate, Diane distracting, standing in. Can move like a butterfly in a piercing sin. Lovanilin något tänker tasgars där magneten hälsen gerlerdan туслахнан зөөлөн бичээр төвөн цааш гүйс хөвч бинар манд хойтон бүр цайхын гүн холюдик хөрч байна бяцхан morning stills vanilla hue across the blue ice cream skies dripping slow with molten light. It's true, clouds like cotton castles drifting soft pastures. I ride a sunrise, chase the daybreak's quiet laws of rapture. Miniature mountains, full circle and peppermint and flame. A sunrise, bicycle wheels through every game. Lightly lit a feather gate, dying witness chanting, standing in. Cannot move like a butterfly in a piercing sin. Full circle and peppermint and flame. A sunrise, سپیده دم رو دنبال میکنم کوههای مینیاتوری Black petals fall from waterfalls But dawn still softly sings in that drop call A haunting call Full circle and peppermint and flame A sunrise bicycle wheels through every gate Lightly lit a feathered gate That light is gently extending Gonna move like a butterfly A piercing sin Oklo vanilin Gutin kırdas kaç Zermagı mi dinger Halsın girlerden Dostluğının Zoljum belçer Tofen taytşe Gut Hoş binamın da hoş Urtaykhinen gumhur Morning spills of vanilla hue Across the blue Ice cream skies dripping slow With molten light it's true Clouds like cotton castles Drift in soft pastures I ride a sunrise Chase the daybreak's quiet laws of rapture Miniature mountains Sokak rengi vanili parpane Abi mi pasha داسمان های بستنی مانند قطره قطره از نور مذاب میچکند این حقیقت داره دبر مانند قله های پنبه های در مرات نرم شناورند من سوار بر طلوع خورشید قوانین آرام و دلانگیز سپیدتم را دنبال میکنم کوههای مینیاتوری Black petals fall from waterfalls But dawn still softly sings a natural calm A hunting call Full circle and peppermint and flame A sunrise bicycle wheels through every game Lightly lit a feathered gate Diane's chanting standing in Can move like a butterfly pin A piercing sin Oklo vanilin Gutin kırdas kaç Zermagni dinger Halsın girlerden Dostluğının Zoljum belçer Tofen taytşe Gut hoş binamın da hoş Urtaykhinen gumhur Ludik hoş ben Morning spills, vanilla hue across the blue Ice cream skies dripping slow with molten light, it's true Clouds like cotton castles drift in soft pastures I ride a sunrise, chase the daybreak's quiet laws of rapture Miniature mountains Full circle and peppermint and flame A sunrise bicycle wheels through every game Lightly lit a feathered gate Dying just chanting standing in Cannot move like a butterfly pin A piercing sin Full circle and peppermint and flame A sunrise bicycle wheels Full circle and peppermint and flame Lightly lit a feathered gate Dying just chanting standing in Cannot move like a butterfly pin A piercing sin Morning spills of vanilla hue across the blue Ice cream skies dripping slow with molten light, it's true Clouds like cotton castles drift in soft pastures I ride a sunrise, chase the daybreak's quiet laws of rapture Miniature mountains Sokak rengi vanili barpane Abi mi pasha آسمان های بستنی مانند قطره قطره از نور مذاب میچکند این حقیقت داره دبر مانند قله های پنبه های در مرات نرم شناورند من سوار بر طلوع خورشید قوانین آرام و دلانگیز سپیده دم رو دنبال میکنم کوههای مینیاتوری Black petals fall from waterfalls But dawn still softly sings in that drop call A haunting call Full circle and peppermint and flame A sunrise bicycle wheels through every game Lightly lit a feathered gate That light is gently extending Gonna move like a butterfly pin A piercing sin Oklo vanilin Gutin kırdas kaç Zermagı mi dinger Halsın girlerden Dostluğının Zoljum belçer Tofen taytşe
죄없는 찬송가 Twilight, eternal blood moon nocturnal Lunar how the sun will rise Just not right now Draconian desire Animals in velvet that I admire Window opens to a vampire Lights to a wire Crepical insurgents, blurred aversion The cats are Persian Perfectly